Hi, I'm Dan Donahue, Principal Solutions Architect at Nethopper. And in today's video, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the KAOPS platform architecture. The purpose of the KAOPS platform is to make this t-shirt untrue. Our goal is to make Kubernetes easy for DevOps operators and anyone on their cloud-native journey. We do that by creating a platform that provides security, things like single sign-on, service, and support for best-of-breed open source tools in the areas of networking, infrastructure as code, application monitoring, application deployment, and things like your CI/CD pipeline. And so let's dive into our architecture. And in this diagram, let's focus on the three middle layers first. You'll see that the bottom layer is network and security. Nethopper actually started out as a multi-cloud company where we just built that multi-cloud networking solution. And although it is compelling and a great solution because it enables Kubernetes clusters from any flavor of Kubernetes or any cloud provider, including on-prem, to connect clusters so that they can talk to one another as if they were in the same cluster. Now, this solution is both Kubernetes and cloud agnostic. If you're choosing our platform, you are not forced to pick a Kubernetes distribution. We've tested with all the big players, all the alphabet soups, AWS, EKS in AWS, GKE in Google, Azure, AKS, AKS HCI, let's say OpenShift, and obviously on-prem. So we support this in a hybrid cloud scenario, a public cloud scenario, or a private cloud. But that networking layer provides the foundation upon which we can use tools like Crossplane and Terraform for infrastructure as code, Argo CD, Argo events and workflows for application monitoring and distribution based on GitOps. In fact, all of our solutions are GitOps driven. So the infrastructure as code is GitOps driven as well as applications. And what enables us to do that in that multi-cloud technology, we form what we call an application network. And in an application network, you would have a cluster we call the hub cluster. That is the one cluster in an application network that has a publicly reachable IP address from which edge clusters can securely attach. And once that application network is formed, we can use tools like, for example, Argo CD running in that hub cluster to control all the remote clusters because we can securely expose the Kubernetes API of those remote clusters to the hub cluster over our multi-cloud network. Our multi-cloud network uses MTLS encrypted endpoints to ensure that all data in the multi-cloud network is secure. That allows something like Argo CD and the other open source tools we run in our platform to have a single instance running in what we call the hub or like a control cluster and able to manage all the other clusters. So something like Crossplane, which can take something like your existing Terraform and wrap it in a GitOps manifest and able to create that infrastructure on any cloud provider of your choice from a single instance of Crossplane. No need to run it on every cluster. You can have it in a single place talking to the Argo CD server who's monitoring in a repo of, let's say, your manifest for your infrastructure as code. So if something changes there, your infrastructure will be changed. We take that same approach, that GitOps approach, with applications as well. With Argo CD, you point our platform to your repos that contain manifests for your applications. We then take those under the covers and create application sets for you and manage them and distribute them to clusters based on rules that you set in our platform. So we take the best of something like Argo CD and remove the complexity. No need to upskill yourself or your team in all the intricate details of Argo CD. We take care of all that for you. And we present all the Argo bells and whistles to you, the most important ones in our UI, but we can also give you access to the Argo UI as well. And this goes for every single one of these open source tools you see the custom workflows. Workflows can be used in your CI/CD pipeline. They can be used to build infrastructure as code and things like form networks, deploy applications to them. We also provide observability using Prometheus and Grafana. And again, using that multi-cloud network, we can have a Prometheus server running on every single cluster, but only have a single Grafana instance running in the hub cluster from which you can browse to to observe all the KPIs and metrics that you're collecting in all those clusters from a single pane of glass. Crossplane is what we use for infrastructure as code. Crossplane provides a GitOps approach to infrastructure as code. In it, it has providers for all the alphabet soup cloud providers like AWS, Google, Azure, but it also has a Terraform provider, and this is where we're finding a lot of use with existing customers. Many customers, and maybe you're in this boat, you have lots of existing Terraform that you've invested in. You either use something like TerraGrunt to try to run it in a declarative manner. But with GitOps, we can leave your Terraform in its native form, and we can create a simple manifest, a cross-plane YAML file that will point to that Terraform and then instantiate that infrastructure in any cluster within your application network. And cross-plane will monitor that infrastructure and to provide things like infrastructure drift. It completely mitigates it. So for example, if I had an existing Terraform file that created a VPC in Amazon, and I created a crossplane manifest that pointed to that, and I instantiated it in the KAOPS platform, it would get created in AWS. Now let's say somebody logged into your AWS account, maybe somebody you work with, and they didn't know you created it in a GitOps way, and they modified it in some way. Crossplane would pick up that drift and restore it to its declarative manner, meaning you can have a single source of truth in that repo for your infrastructure as code. And obviously the same applies for applications. So things like upgrading an application can be done by Argo CD. You simply upgrade or change the image tag, for example, in a manifest pointing to a deployed image. And based on the policies you set, that can be automatically updated throughout your network. Now you can also manually sync it, and we have controls for things like that, but hopefully you get the point. And in the future, in our roadmap, we'll be including Argo rollouts, which will allow things like canary rollouts, blue-green rollouts, and so forth. So that's the main focus of our architecture: network, infrastructure as code, application management, meaning deployment, monitoring, and upgrades, and so forth. Now, all the way to the left, you see, this is built for IT or DevOps folks. We can integrate with things like ServiceNow or Jira. So that, like, for example, if somebody wanted to create a cluster, they could create a Jira ticket, and somebody approves it, which would result in a post that would update something in a repo that we're monitoring, and we could instantiate that infrastructure as code. All the way to the right, you show that we work with all the familiar cloud providers that I mentioned earlier, and it's all Git driven. So again, we provide single sign-on, RBAC control, security, and a secure multi-cloud or multi-cluster network that is Kubernetes and cloud agnostic, that we can then deploy and run all these open source tools for you. So this is where we are today, and there are many exciting additions coming to the platform.